This here is another viewer's broken gaming PC. And yes, I know, there's already something super cringe about it. I really don't know why this is here, in the bottom slot. Mr. Nader's 2000.
I don't know either.
Why on earth
I don't know.
have you done that? I would never have allowed you to do that. So for those of you who aren't aware, Nate is my brother-in-law, and we actually built this system together, it must have been 2 years ago or so on the channel. He's since modified it just a tad, but it is having some issues apart from the obvious.
So, as y'all can see, I got a pretty sweet card in, or so it was a sweet card.
What kind of card is it?
It is a...
You don't even know?
MSI GeForce RTX 3080.
Oh, it's a 3080, okay.
It's a 3080. So
All right.
I got it secondhand from a guy in Tallahassee. My wife and I, your sister, we were traveling from Tallahassee, going back home, and he was at a gas station. Long story short, about the graphics.
This at a gas station?
I got it from a guy in Tallahassee at a gas station. It worked great. It's been killing it. Out of nowhere, this is like a week ago, it just stopped working. It started giving me camo, like digital camo on my screen, and it freezes my computer.
Digital camo. I'm not gonna forget that one. I guess without further ado, since we now have that context about a gas station, we might as well go ahead and turn this on and see if we can see the same artifacting Nate's describing. And yeah, this is usually what it looks like when a graphics card is on its way out. So this might be a very quick fix, but it's just unfortunate that the gas station graphics card here has decided to throw in the towel. I think you'll need to brace yourselves. Stay with me. To get rid of that annoying Windows activation watermark, head on over to VIP SCD Key. Purchase a Windows 10 Pro OEM key for a fraction of the price of retail. Just use a secure payment method like PayPal, enter your product key into your PC settings window, and say bye-bye to the watermark. And be sure to use our offer code SKGS for a sweet discount. Now I know a lot of you are screaming by this point at me for not moving the card to the uppermost full-length PCIe slot. The reason why I'm not doing that yet is because I want to see if at the very least we can replicate the issue Nate's describing here. And I saw the photo, so I know it exists. I just don't know if it's going to happen right away. I don't want to touch anything in case Don't look back here, Nate. Don't look back here. That was false alarm. Dude, what is that?
I don't know, just started doing it.
That sounds awful. Right, so we do get a post. It is loading into Windows. I don't see any artifacting right now. So what we can do is maybe try running it through like a graphics intensive benchmark, maybe like a burn-in test, like Furmark, and we'll see if we get artifacting there. I imagine since the card isn't under any sustained load yet and it's not very hot, it might not be exhibiting what you were showing me earlier. So let's try to push it to its limits. Right, so here is Furmark. We're just gonna run the standard preset here. All we're looking to do is stress the card. From what Nate says, this has happened after gaming.
Yeah, about 3 hours.
Yeah, so a longer gaming session when the card's been stressed, it gets pretty warm. That's when we should see either a blue screen or artifacting, maybe both. So let's go ahead and start the test. We'll click go. And here is where, dude, you've got so much stuff popping up. Oh man. All right, so we're gonna let this run. We can see our GPU temperature down here. It's looking like it's around 70 degrees Celsius right now. We're gonna let this run for about 30 minutes or so when we have most of the card thermally saturated. And if we don't see issues by then we're gonna have to look elsewhere, possibly the cables that Nate is using or even his display. So far from what I'm seeing, this card looks to be fine, even in the lower PCIe slot on his board.
12 o'clock midnight.
My nose just cut off. Oh, it did. I don't think that was related, right? That was weird.
That's what I was doing to mine. It would say no signal. You know, I've got 2 monitors. My main monitor, it would like shut off and say no signal, but then my left monitor, it would say, it would like blink like it was getting power to it, if that makes sense.
Your PC just reset.
That's what it was doing to me.
So I was just about to give him crap for bringing me a perfectly working system, and I don't know if the camera caught it, but the system just went black. It didn't turn off, but it did hard reset. And now we're back at the Windows loading screen, and now it's, okay, hold on, what does that say? Video TDR failure. Well, that's about as black and white as it gets, folks. So ignoring Nate's awkward middle school profile picture, you can see there are a number of small artifacts, and this is what I saw in Nate's picture, something along these lines. And when I saw that, I immediately thought there was an issue with the graphics card. If it's not a graphics card problem, it's a cable issue or a monitor issue, more than likely. But seeing as though he purchased a secondhand card from someone at a gas station, I don't think we should be all that surprised by what we are witnessing. You can see even on the home screen, we get small bits of artifacting. It's, again, something that you never want to see. It's never a good sign. Wow, look further down at this BattleNet icon. Let's see, it's this one here. You almost can't even read the text because it's so distorted by what the card is doing. In fact, we're even getting driver errors now, which we weren't seeing before. You saw we were running Furmark without issue 10 minutes ago. But I think the drivers are having issues communicating with the hardware because we probably have a hardware issue. I think at this point that's fairly apparent, and that's why we're getting this message. Just a guess, but I don't see why else we'd be getting this message since we haven't actually uninstalled any drivers or anything like that. We've just allowed the card to heat soak a bit. So let's try something different. The first thing we need to try is perhaps the most obvious, moving this graphics card up to the uppermost full-length PCIe slot. It shouldn't be down here, especially a card as powerful as a 3080. Depending on how you have your PCIe lanes sorted by the chipset and the CPU, this could be extremely detrimental to the performance. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if just moving this up top fixed Nate's issues entirely. And that's ignoring the other elephant in the room. When a card is positioned that low, it doesn't get a lot of air, so it can overheat, which could also lead to artifacting. The other less obvious issue that we can tackle very easily is removing this daisy-chained 8+8 pin here. For 3080s especially, and cards higher than this, I don't recommend running a single 8-pin from a power supply and then running a daisy-chain setup like so. A few people have had issues. It's not recommended necessarily, though I don't obviously think this is alone causing the issues that we're seeing on screen. In fact, it's probably not related to this at all, but I did want to mention it because I'm sure the comment section will. Now, Nate, I know you probably already know this. You've got a large gaping hole now underneath your card. Not the end of the world. You have the extra ones, don't you, though? Yeah, okay, cool. So just wanted to let YouTube know so you don't get annihilated again in the comment section. So now this card is where it belongs. So now at this point you can see we are able to run Furmark again, which is a good sign. The GPU is being utilized 100%, which is normal. We've got temperatures in the mid-60s now. I expect temperatures to fall a bit since we've positioned the card a bit higher. It can breathe a bit better. Memory frequency looks okay. So far so good still. 68 degrees Celsius. Yeah, it's not, uh-oh. Uh-oh. This looks familiar. Come on. Oh yeah, dude, it's hard resetting still. This card is on its way out. So what I think has happened is this card has developed an issue from constant thermal cycling, which most cards have that tolerance built in, right? They're designed to be stressed to get extremely hot and then contract and cool again. And metal obviously expands when it gets hot, and sometimes if you have weak solder points, weak joints, you could have the graphics processing unit itself, or maybe a memory chip, partially deball, which means that it can become dislodged. Some of the small little BGA balls that they use to connect the chips to the boards become dislodged. They can corrode if they're in bad environments. And I have a feeling that's what's going on here, because from the start, the card seemed to be okay. It, of course, was cool. It hadn't been turned on in, several days since you guys drove down here. And then immediately after we fired up Furmark and got this card super hot, as it would in a normal game, that's when we started seeing issues. We turned the system off for about 10 minutes and then powered it back on, loaded up Furmark, seemed okay for about 20 or 30 seconds, and then you saw the system completely shut down. That, to me, warrants some sort of graphics card repair that will likely involve tools I don't have here. So the easy bet for me is to just replace the card outright. We can also try testing this in a separate system just to make sure that it is card related, that the issue is being carried over from system to system. But I think that the easy solution here is just to swap the card out. The issue, Nate, is you have an RTX 3080 in here, and I don't have too many of those laying around. Now, I've gotten crap from some of you in the past for having so many graphics cards. Why am I so stingy with how many I'm willing to replace? The truth is, most of these boxes are empty. They're either in systems or they have already been given away or repurposed in other upgraded rigs for viewers, etc. So, like this one here, I know I don't have this one anymore. I might have a 3070. I do think I have this one. This one's in a rig. This one is in a rig.
A lot of boring math later.
Yeah. I'll give you something for now, but it's gonna be a loner. So let's get this thing back out of here. So I've got this 3070 here, and you know what, dang it, I'll be a good brother-in-law. I'll let you keep it, all right? But promise me that you don't swap this out for another gas station graphics card. That's the one condition. Are we okay with that, Nate?
Yeah, I think that'll work.
Okay, I think that's fair. I know she isn't a 3080, and yeah, this is sort of a downgrade, but it beats well, it beats a 3080 that Artifacts, that's for sure, and it still looks pretty darn good. It's also not an MSI card, and you guys know how I stand with that. This card's also just a 8+6 pin, so it's gonna pull less power. And of course, we're gonna run the same firmware test to make sure this one's stable. Some good news finally, I didn't expect anything less from this 3070. The card runs perfectly fine. I think it's been about 15, 20 minutes or so, and we're just over 70 degrees Celsius. That's where it is leveled off without any issues or any artifacting. I think you're ready for a new home. Ow, Jesus, ready for a new home. So now we turn our attention back to the MSI 3080. I have cleaned up the die, I've taken apart the card. Things physically look okay, and I've noticed this just in the past, you know, it's gonna be difficult to see anything with the naked eye. I'd have to start probing various locations to see if there's a dead short somewhere. So far, it looks okay. I'm gonna repaste this, we're gonna put the card back together and pop it into a test bench. And we'll see. Sometimes just taking the card apart, giving it a proper cleaning, and then reassembling can actually fix intermittent issues like that. So who knows? I think it's worth a shot. Back together again. You can see we've got a makeshift test bench sitting right here on the edge of the desk. It's already hooked up, and I've already gotten the latest NVIDIA drivers installed. Now we're gonna run Firmark and see if the exact same symptoms show themselves here. If they do, then we'll know that the issues were carried over by the card itself, and it definitely needs to be either repaired or recycled. And again, I would be surprised if the card wasn't repairable. I just don't have the tools here to take care of it. The temperature is, okay, I was about to mention the temperature was climbing at about the same rate it was before, but the screen just went black. And this was only after, what, like 20 seconds of running Firmark? One other thing to note about this card while we're waiting for things to reboot, this was previously opened. I noticed the seal was broken, so whoever owned this card before Nate did, whoever sold it to him at the gas station apparently, opened this up, probably repasted it. I don't suspect that's why the issue is coming up now, because again, Nate's had this card for like a year, but it very well could have contributed to the problem if things weren't done correctly when it was apart. And it looks like, unfortunately, we're not getting any signal from the card at all now. The monitor's just completely black. I don't know why it's doing this now, but we're definitely worse off than we were before. So very strange, but I think it's fair and safe to say now that the card is definitely the culprit, and it's not something I would put into any rig again, at least in its current state. This board unfortunately doesn't have a Dr. Debug, although I'm fairly certain it would point toward VGA out as the culprit. You can see the fans in the card are still spinning. I mean, physically, it seems fine, the PCB seems fine, but it does not want to play ball. And that's sometimes just how the cookie crumbles. Maybe in the future, avoid graphics cards that are being sold at gas stations. What a story. There still is hope for this. It will have to be sent somewhere to some sort of specialist for more intensive diagnosis. But for now, yeah, worst case scenario confirmed. Now quickly back to Nate's rig. I noticed that I still hear the high-pitched whirring sound. It sounds like some sort of fan grinding noise coming from the chipset area. I think it is a chipset fan in this X570 motherboard. We'll definitely have to swap motherboards out at some point, but for now you can see it settles down. I think when the system finally posts, the fan curve kicks in and the fan either slows down to a near halt or completely stops. But that is what we were hearing in the beginning of the video, if you were curious. No, it was not one of the fans in the graphics card being snagged by something lower down. Fortunately, Nate's rig is back up and running again. Unfortunately, it required a graphics card replacement, but at least it is a working, reliable rig again. We confirmed that with Furmark. The graphics card was the only issue, which is why I saw the need to only stress the graphics card to ensure that the system would be stable long term. I think this is the same board, mind you, that we had to repair ourselves because there were a few pins missing in the CPU. We ended up filling some of the holes in the socket with copper, and to date, Nate says he hasn't had any CPU-related issues from what he could tell, which is pretty impressive. I really didn't think that would hold up as well as it did, but it seems to be doing just fine. So I totally stand behind how we repaired that. I know a lot of folks are like, why don't you just solder it? That doesn't make any sense. You know, very difficult to solder things that are that fine without a really expensive equipment typically. Plus, I don't have surgeon hands, so I don't trust myself. I think that shoving copper into the holes in the socket was the safer bet for us, and the proof's in the pudding. So at least the rig works. The graphics card's not the same. It is slightly weaker, but if you look at it this way, the original card in here that I gave him was an RTX 2070, I believe, and now he's got an RTX 3070 in here. So really, I kind of upgraded him. I'm gonna go with that story. I just wanted you to stare at the camera.
I was like, is somebody gonna say something?
Do you feel like I kind of screwed you on the graphics card downgrading situation?
No, I'm grateful. I'm grateful. Thank you. I mean, I went from a card that didn't work to a card that does work. So thank you.
This guy. Yeah, no worries. No, I appreciate you driving down. And like I said, if you have any other issues, give me a holler. I'm going to try my best to get that 3080 looked at by someone who is actually a professional in board repair, because I don't claim that to be my strong suit, not in the slightest. So maybe we can get Northridge Fix or someone along those lines to take a look at it. I'll reach out to several of them if I can and see who bites first. And maybe we can get some cool little collab going on. And if we get the card fixed, then they'll, hopefully they'll send it back and we can pop that back in here, and you'll have, a 3080 instead of a 3070.
So I might be back.
With that, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. Yes, it was a worst case scenario. The graphics card is always just, it's the thing you're hoping it's not the most, right? It's usually the most expensive or one of the most expensive components in a rig, especially a gaming rig. And that was the case here. But if you're seeing similar symptoms, you're seeing screen artifacting, what Nate was saying, he knew right away that it was probably something graphics card related. And I more or less confirmed that when I saw the photos he had sent. I was on the fence about it actually being a graphics card issue when we first got it in here. It seemed to be working just fine, but I'm glad we gave it some due diligence and we're patient with it, because it definitely exhibited many concerning symptoms. And at the very end you saw was just giving us a black screen, which Nate said he also noticed in his rig back home. So yeah, I'll keep you updated on that card for now. If you guys enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing. If you have not already, check out relevant links in the video description, including a link to our Discord server, which is totally free to join. Are you in the Discord?
Yes. Yes.
Consider supporting us on Patreon, and I will catch you in the next one. My name's Greg.
My name's Nate.
Thanks for learning with us. I swear to God.
I got an alternate ending. All right, guys, and as always, do not buy a gas station graphics card. Greg, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You're awesome for this. And consider liking and subscribing. Enjoy.
You're a natural, Nate.